Recording in progress.
Folks, we're gonna wait just a couple of minutes to get started. A couple of our colleagues are getting themselves updated on their phones so they can access email through the authentication device. And a reminder for colleagues who have, I think the ones who've not yet done it all remote, Clerk Moore has your names and will be contacting you as a reminder. It is really important that all of us get fully updated so we can access our email in a secure fashion. So we'll give it like 2 minutes till Councilors Getz and Danberg come in. And colleagues, for those online, we are only down one colleague tonight, although we have a significant number online. So we are going to take up the one item on second call, which is a city seal item. I'd like to get that voted on one way or the other this evening. My public service announcements. As many of you, I think, have volunteered to sign up for the Newton Schools Foundation fundraiser on the 14th. It's a trivia night. I think we have a pretty good turnout. If you are interested in participating and if you have a spouse or significant other who wants to join us, please let me know. It should be a fun night for a really good cause for the Newton Schools Foundation. And we'll see how well the city council does compared to some of the other groups there. All right, folks, we are going to begin. I'm going to ask Councilor Lobovitz to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag, the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the City Council. We are being both audio taped and videotaped, and because of some illnesses and school vacation week, we have a number of people online. I'm going to note that for the record right now. I've got Councilor Grossman, Councilor Baker, Councilor Bixby, Councilor Krinsman, Councilor Gentile, and Councilor Lipoff, who are all participating remotely. Everyone else is in the chamber with the exception of Councilor Mickley, who I know is on vacation with his family. So we have a relatively light agenda this evening. We're going to go through first call, and then we have one item, the city seal item that was chartered last time. We're going to take that up and we'll finish our business. So I'm going to recognize Chair Kelly for the Land Use Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We haven't met yet this month, so I don't have a report, but I would like to assign some public hearings.
Please go ahead.
On page 39, I would like to assign two public hearings for February 25th. The first is item number 29-25 at 10 Nonantum Street. The second is item number 30-25 at 2077 Washington Street. And then I also have some for March 4th to assign, please. The first is number 32-25 at 7 Hereward Road. Number 33-25 at 124 Neshoba Road. And finally, also on March 4th, number 34-25, 16 Pine Ridge Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. Vice Chair Oliver for the Zoning and Planning Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Zoning and Planning Committee met on February the 10th. The report begins on page 33. We had item 13-25, reappointment of Amy Dane to the Planning and Development Board. That item passed 8-0. Item 15-25, the appointment of Robert Jampol to the Conservation Commission. That also passed 8-0. The next two items, nope, I'm lying. Item 17-25, requesting discussion and amendments to the floodplain ordinance was heard and approved 8-0. The next item was, two items were held. The next three items were held, but I do want to point out that next week on the 26th, so I believe that is Wednesday, we have two public hearings on the accessory dwelling units or ADUs here in the chamber. And with that, that completes the report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Oliver. Next, I have Public Safety and Transportation, Chair Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's no report this evening.
Thank you. Next, I have, I skipped over Public Programs and Services Committee. My apologies, Councilor Krinsman, particularly because you were the only councilor to remember that it was President's Day yesterday. Although I did get a congratulatory email from the mayor, but go ahead, please, Chair Krinsman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some thanks I get. Report begins on page 34, but the first item is on page 35. Item 16-25, the reappointment of Edward Chapman to the Parks and Recreation Commission was approved by a vote of 7-0. Item 18-25, the appointment of Molly Doris Pierce to the Health and Human Services Advisory Board was approved by a vote of 7-0. Item 20-25, the reappointment of Matthew Stafford to the Health and Human Services Advisory Council was approved by a vote of 7-0. Item 21-25, the reappointment of Asaf Anelli to the Health and Human Services Advisory Council was approved by a vote of 7-0. The remaining two items were held, and with that, I would move the report.
Thank you, Chair Krinsman. Next, I have Chair Albright for the Public Facilities Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I only have one item to report out tonight, and that is 348-24, requesting a discussion with the Department of Public Works on the work to upgrade the water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. Because that will be coming back to us in the next month or two for the budget, we voted no action necessary, and that was a vote of 6-0. If I may,
Please.
Mr. President, I sent a letter to the council last Friday, I think it was, asking people to sign on to a letter to the commissioners at the DPU for two items that would help us in our pilot, looking to switch from gas to electricity. One of the items is because the National Grid can't share information with Eversource by by fiat by the DPU, and they're asking for a waiver from that so that we can let the people know what the cost would be if they switched from gas to electricity. And the other one is a little bit more complicated, but not much. So if you're interested in signing on, I'm hoping to send that letter out on Thursday. So if you're interested in signing on, please check your email for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Albright. Next, I have Chair Gentile for the Finance Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to ask for a suspension of the rules in order to report out two items that were taken up earlier this evening for which there is no written report.
All in favor of suspending the rules to allow for the two items to be taken up, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Go ahead, please.
First item was 14-25. It's a reappointment. Your Honor, the Mayor reappointing Brian Davis as a member of the Newton Board of Assessors. This is approved 6-0. Second item is 22-25, a request by the mayor to authorize and to accept and expend the sum of $56,000 from Mass DEP Recycling Dividends Grant for the city's waste diversion efforts. And that also was approved by a vote of 6-0, and I would move the report.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. Chair Danberg for real property reuse.
Thank you, Mr. President, and belated happy President's Day.
Thank you, Councilor Danberg.
There is no report for the Real Property Reuse Committee, but I want everyone to know who would like to come that there will be a meeting on Thursday, February 27th of RPR. I also want to make sure that everybody knows that we still have, because of the snow that we've had, although the city has done a very good job both in plowing the streets and in clearing the sidewalks. I think there is about 70 miles of sidewalk that is cleared by the city. If there are any sidewalks that you in your travels see, or anyone that may be listening to this at home, please know that if it's a commercial area that has either not cleared or has cleared inadequately, if there is ice, et cetera, that makes it dangerous, commercial areas, you may call the police. The traffic number is 617-796-2100, sorry, again, 617-796-2100 is the traffic number, and you just wait for the cue that says traffic. And if it is residential, go to your 311 and report so that we can make the sidewalks as clear as possible for everyone to walk safely in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Danberg. With that, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Albright.
Aye.
Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Bixby.
Aye.
Counselor Block.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs. Aye. Counselor Farrell.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile.
Aye.
Counselor Getz.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly. Aye. Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Counselor Mickley. Counselor Oliver.
Aye.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
Motion carries 23 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to go right on to second call. We have one item before us. It's 5524, requesting an update regarding the city seal design. This was chartered last time by Councilor Humphrey. Is there anything you want to add at this point, Councilor Humphrey?
Thank you, Mr. President. Not a whole lot. I hope folks had a chance to ask any further questions that they had over the past couple weeks. Hear from more members of the public. I think we did hear a little bit more from people, so I hope that was helpful. And you know, I went over the design, the history, where we were at last time, so I won't repeat that. Again, we are essentially at the end of the process here, at least in terms of funds available for this project. So I'm respectfully asking folks to approve the design, and certainly want to thank again everyone, not only our graphic designer, but our whole working group team that worked on that. And of course, thank you to Councilor Baker for all of his input on the exterior part of the seal, and Councilor Maliki for providing the photograph that was the basis of the interior of the seal. So thanks again to everyone who helped on this, and I hope that folks will vote in favor for our seal for the next generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Humphrey. Councilor Maliki.
Yes, thank you. And I just first like to point out that just because I provided the photo that was basis for the center does not mean that I think it is the solution. It was merely an effort to make better the three choices that we were given in the earlier stage. So I put this item on second call 2+ weeks ago because I didn't
Would you
think.
move your microphone a little bit closer? I think that'd be
Okay.
helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Because I didn't think the full council should be voting on the proposed design without a lot more discussion. I realized a significant number of my fellow councilors, while on board with replacing the image of John Eliot proselytizing to Native Americans, were at the very least ambivalent about whether the proposed new seal is what we want as a substitute. I also thought all of us should have time to read the responses to the January public survey, which only got uploaded to the Friday packet a few hours before our February 3rd meeting. Hard for even somebody without a day job to review the 487 responses. At that point, I'd only had time to go through the what do you like best answers and skim the what would you change and additional comments. I've now gone through all of the responses in the spreadsheet format to be able to see each person's answers to all 4 questions together. It's clear that there's some disappointment and ambivalence, and not just from people who want to keep the current seal. I counted favorable and unfavorable mentions. It's something like this. Some of the top themes. 126 liked the simplicity, but 69 said some version of childish, cartoonish, or like clip art, basically too simple. 50 said something like uninspired, boring, or bland. 67 liked nothing. 62 said keep the original. 46 liked having the tree in the design, only 2 against. Several also asked for more trees, better drawn trees or leaves or wildlife. But more people didn't want City Hall in the design than liked it, 55 to 43. 40 people liked getting rid of John Eliot proselytizing, only 1 against, but 13 were not happy about erasing Native Americans. 15 people said some version of the old seal should be replaced, but not with this, or start over. 24 wanted something more unique to Newton. 21 wanted more Garden City flowers or nature, and 14 wanted something more historic. Adding 13 villages was popular, but others wished the villages could be represented symbolically, maybe with stars or something like that. And even some people who said their initial impression was positive, that's where we had the extremely positive, positive, neutral, negative, extremely negative. Even some of the positive people weren't really all that positive. These are comments from positive people. Remove the government building. Newton is the garden city, but there's no garden in the seal. The drawing seems too simple, like a child did it. The graphics look cartoonish, need more detail. A more realistic painting would be better than the cartoonish one. The illustration could be Anytown, USA. It's a shame it had to be redesigned at all. The new seal is pleasant and generic, could be any town in America. I don't think City Hall belongs on the seal, and I don't really like the chosen depiction of the building. Put in some people, it's very sterile without people. And from a very positive on question 1 person who really liked all the text, the City Hall drawing looks almost childish. Please consider an image based on one of our great parks. A large open field with multiple trees would be a lot more engaging. So as much as we may feel it's a good idea to change the current seal, and some of you may just want to be done with it, I think it would be a mistake to approve the current proposal. There's clearly room for improvement. We'll likely be looking at whatever we approve for decades. So it should be something that both the city councilors and hopefully residents are affirmatively enthusiastic about, not split on. We need to do better than just settling for something that's not John Elliott proselytizing. Please reject the false choice that if we don't vote for the new design, we're stuck with the old one. We don't have to start from scratch. We have the very good research of the ad hoc working group and their feedback, some of which seems to have been lost, like the importance of education to Newton. No sign of that in the proposal. And we've got the recent feedback of what people like and what they want more of or less of. Personally, I would like to take that information and open it up to a public design contest because I don't think we've tapped the creativity and artistic ability of Newton residents. But it could be as simple as finding a better center image for the current proposals. Doing this right is more important than doing it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a number of people online. I'm going to start with Councilor Krinsman, Gentile, and Grossman in that order.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very quick. I just want to remind folks that this isn't actually the end of the process, even if it's approved tonight, because what the ordinances include is a description of the city seal. And we still need to get that item docketed and approved. If this seal is approved by the city council, this is essentially an indication that the city council supports this design, and we'll then have to go about crafting the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gentile.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by making two things clear. Number one, I was not someone who, at the beginning of the process, said that absolutely we should not look into this and that we should just keep the current seal as we have it. Even though I know there were some strong feelings in area of the city where my family predominantly grew up, I still think that it made sense to take a look at it. I also want to say that I appreciate the time that that people put into this, and I don't want people to think that because I have some criticism of what we're being asked to approve, you know, that I'm demeaning their work or their effort in any way. But when I put the two seals right next to each other, to me, there's no comparison as to which example looks at least more official to me or more stately, or what I would expect a seal to look like. And that's the current seal versus the new proposed seal. And I have to agree with a lot of the things that Council Maliki read about the depiction of City Hall. If City Hall's in there, I mean, I could live with it. If there was something about education, I could live with it. But what we have in there right now for City Hall, it just doesn't do City Hall justice. And I agree, and again, this is going to be sound negative, but I agree that it looks like, you know, clip art or, you know, a young kid did it or whatever. And it just doesn't look very stately or very impressive to me. I'm disappointed that we removed from the exterior of the design. I think that what we have right now is informative when it talks about when we were founded, when the town was incorporated, and when we became a city. I think that's good information to have, and I'm just not, it's not clear to me why we removed that. I like on the new seal that there's a reference, you know, to our villages, because that is a huge part of Newton. And it's even though I have to constantly explain.
Councilor Gentile, you're running out of time. Do you need more time?
2 minutes, please.
All right, all in favor of granting Councilor Gentile an extra 2 minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let's go ahead, please.
So even though I'm always explaining to people, well, I live in Newton, but I also live in Auburndale, it still is something that makes the city I grew up in. I think it makes it kind of unique. And I like the idea of trying to, to add that in. The first I heard tonight about some kind of a design contest. I mean, I think that's a good idea. So I have no problems with changing what we have now. I just don't think that we have gotten it right yet. And I think that there is time for us, to continue to work. And I think it should be recommitted back to programs and services so that we can continue to do that. Even if it is to hold a design contest and see that we come up with, because, it's a start, but it is not, to me, it doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. There should be a much stronger consensus on the council, I believe, but more so in the community, and that certainly doesn't exist. So I hope that people will give some thought to maybe recommitting this and keeping the work going until we all are more comfortable with what we come up with, especially on that inner circle.
Thank you, Counselor Gentile. Counselor Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support the new city seal. I think it looks really nice. I also think the process was thorough and thoughtful and professional and appropriate. And I believe that when it comes to design, the eye is in the beholder, and there is no design that is going to be put before a large group of people that everybody is going to jump up and down for joy over. It's just not how design works. When this isn't necessarily a comparable situation, but when I think about the home renovation that I went through, I don't think my husband and I could agree on one design decision. And the minute we added in an architect and other folks, everybody had a different opinion. It's art, it's interpretive. I think the group did a really nice job. I do like it. I support it. I hope others will as well. And I don't want to see the process continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Grossman. Turning to the chamber, Counselor Lucas, then Oliver, then Farrell, and I've got several more.
Thank you, President Laredo. And I just want to say thank you to Counselor Humphrey and Malachy for doing the work on the working group, and other members of the working group for their work. I am going to vote no on the city seal, and I need to explain why. The proposed city seal, it's a picture of City Hall. And to me, that represents we as a city are putting government over people, government over Newton's history, government over nature. And I don't think that should be on the new seal. I think there could have been better alternative designs. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the Charles River incorporated into the seal. But what I really would have loved to have seen is the working group go in the direction of putting the Jackson Homestead on the seal, because I think the Jackson Homestead truly represents Newton at its finest moment. And it's part of our history, and it's part of our story that we need to tell. I mean, the Jackson Homestead was a major stop on the Underground Railroad. And I think most people in Newton are aware of that, but most people outside of Newton looking at that on our city seal would certainly be interesting, and we need to tell that story. The Jackson Homestead sits on Washington Street in the village of Nonantum. The Jackson Homestead represents liberty, union, and freedom, helping runaway slaves to their freedom. And I know I am damn proud of that Newton was part of that important chapter in Newton's history. I think that needs to be on the seal. It would be a better design, a better image than City Hall, which, let's face it, it's an office building. It's an office building that we're in right now. It's a government office building. Again, government over people, government over nature, government over our history. the Jackson Homestead, I think would have been a better direction to go in. So I am not going to vote yes on the seal. I will vote no. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. Next, I have Counselor Oliver and then Farrell.
Great, thank you, sir. I also am going to be voting against this iteration of the seal. And I feel like I need to explain a little bit why. I've listened to a lot of the comments. I've read and spoken to a lot of people. The project came through Programs and Services 2 or 3 times, I believe. At the end of the day, I would much rather have a seal that we're going to be looking at for most likely as long as any of us live here, that we can be proud of, that speaks to what it is to live and be a part of Newton. I do not see my vote against the new seal as voting for the current seal. That is a really big distinction for me. If someone were to be presenting the proposed seal, would you vote for that? Would you choose the option that's in front of us, regardless of the current seal? That's the question I keep coming back to in all of the conversations I've had. It simply seems to me that the proposed seal doesn't meet the criteria that a lot of us have in the back of our mind, whether it doesn't represent the Newton, the history that we want, whether it represents a government building or city hall or Jackson Homestead or something else. All I'm saying is, I don't think this current seal is the right representation for Newton. And simply because I'm voting against it does not mean I want to keep our current seal forever. I think we can do better than that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Oliver. I next have Counselor Farrell, then Wright, then Kelly. I got others after that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been ambivalent about the design of Newton's city seal since I first heard of the idea. I've listened carefully, I believe, to the sentiments of it must change. Vinnie wrote, why change? And now here's the option. I voted for this in committee, but with sincere respect to Heidi Kieran-Durrett, Councilors Humphrey and Malachy, and the design team for their enormous time and effort, I can only say that if the seal must change, this version should not be our choice. As I discussed with Ms. Kieran-Durrett many weeks ago, I find that having the image of the seat of government dominate this new version is truly not unlike what many consider to be the intolerable sight of Reverend John Eliot dominating Native people in 1646. If our seal must change, I believe that the image must be one that reflects the joyous beauty of our city and will be recognized, acknowledged, and appreciated by future generations. This decision is lasting and important. To that end, I would like to support a fabulous notion, not mine, but my colleague from Ward 6, that Councilor Getz, that Echo Bridge be the center of the new seal. Echo Bridge is beautiful and joyous. It's on the National Register of Historic Places and was named an American Water Landmark. It has and will forever give generations of residents a glorious view of the Charles River, the boundary surrounding nearly 3/4 of Newton, and of Hemlock Gorge. Echo Bridge is a perfect symbol for the Garden City. And so is the Jackson Homestead. I hope that you will join with me and acknowledge Ms. Derek and the committee design team for getting us to think intentionally about how to represent the past and the future of our city on its seal. It's been an eye-opening and purposeful journey. I also hope that you will join with me and acknowledge that the image before us does not fully capture or reflects our love and hope for our city. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Farrell. Next, I have Counselor Wright, Kelly, Greenberg, Downs. If there's anyone else, Lobovitz, hold on, I'm getting you all down. Lobovitz, Albright, gets, okay. That would be easier, but we're not going to do it that way. Please go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, counselors, Humphrey and Malachi and the others that have worked on the city seal. But I see it very generic. I'm voting no. I like the 13 villages with year and tree on it, but it stops there. In front is a pond, which is either man-made or a retention pond. We should use the Charles River since the city is surrounded on three sides by the river. And City Hall was built in the 1930s and looked like many other cities' hall. We should use an historic building. Some choices that have been described already is Jackson Homestead, but we could use the Durant Kendrick House or the Allen House. The Allen House represents education, where boys and girls were educated in racially mixed classes. And it was one of the country's first kindergarten. And it was also on the Underground Railroad. So I think this should go back and we should try again. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Wright. Counselor Kelly, and then Counselor Greenberg.
Boy, the ideas are endless on this seal. I guess, first of all, I do want to thank the committee members as well as the two counselors who served on it, because I understand how much time went into this and it was very well intended. Design by committee never works. Rarely do you get a product that people are happy with. I see that all the time in my work and in the design review committee. And as we talk about it tonight, the new ideas that have come up, add people, add the Charles River, add flowers, add the Jackson Homestead, add bicycles, add Echo Bridge, add the Allen House. It's endless. Personally, I don't have a problem with the components we have before us. The circle, the city hall, the pond, the tree, the date. I don't have an issue with any of that, and I do think the seal should be changed. But I think, as Councillor Malachi said at the very beginning, I'm not sure that this is a seal that we're really going to be happy with over the long haul. For me, it's the quality of the graphics and the rendering, particularly the broccoli stalk tree, drives me crazy. I find that the idea that has been mentioned again tonight, and personally for me, because I've been kind of veering towards no, and I am actually going to be a no on this, of just getting it over with is not a good enough reason to vote yes. So I will be voting no, and I hope that, as Malachi said, we don't have to start over, but let's start where we are and move forward and get a seal that we can be really happy about. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Kelly. Next, I have Counselor Greenberg and then Counselor Downs.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank the design group and programs and services for all their hard work on this project. I am in full support of the new seal, primarily because the current seal's central figure is a Christian male. This does not represent the diversity of our city. Also, I understand that the simplicity of the new design is a concern, but the simplicity is actually a strong aspect of the design. It's easily understood and replicated. The city of Worcester has a very similar simple design for their seal. It's a red heart surrounded by green laurel. It's very effective, in my opinion. So I agree. I approve this new seal and I like the design, and I hope that my fellow colleagues vote for this design also. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Greenberg. Counselor Downs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Wanted to start with a question, if I may, through you to Counselor Krinsman or Counselor Humphrey. My understanding is that what we are approving tonight is not a final design. Is that true?
That's a question for Counselor Krinsman through the president. Counselor Krinsman, do you want to respond?
Sure. My understanding, and I'm happy to listen to others, but this is the final design. There was actually a budget for design work. The working group worked with the designer. They have expended that budget. There is no more budget unless it's done in-house. After a rejection tonight, this is the final design.
Okay. So then I guess the question is, if we are approving what we are approving tonight is to change the seal and to accept this as the final design. Is that accurate?
That is the decision tonight. There will be a separate docket item for the verbiage, but this is going to be the design if we approve it.
Okay. The idea that the seat of government in Newton is not an appropriate thing to put on a seal or represents the government over the people, I believe is mistaken. Because as long as we are a democracy, and God, I hope we remain a democracy, where our decisions are made democratically by our elected officials is in fact us as a city. It is more us as a city than a tree, which is fairly generic, although I'm happy to have trees and gardens in our city seal. But this is where we make decisions for ourselves, or where the people that we elect make decisions to govern ourselves. I think it's a perfectly appropriate thing to have in a city seal. Now, it is my understanding that putting people in a seal is problematic, and that the complexity of the current design and of future designs has to be simplified because of, it's one of the design guidelines that we had to adopt. And I really appreciate the long process that this has been through. So although I may have reservations about exactly what's in the seal and the way it's arranged and how it might look against a different background, what I saw in the extensive spreadsheet that Councilor Malachy, and thank you very much for doing it, pulled together for us, was general approval of changing the seal and a lot of quibbling about the design, which I think is going to happen with any final. And so I will associate myself with the comments of Councilor Grossman, and I will be voting for this design. And I hope that we give this more than just a, we don't like the design, we're not going to go anywhere, because I don't believe we're going to get another design, as much as I like the water structure down in Hemlock Gorge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. Next, I have Councilor Lobovitz, Albright, Getz, Kalis.
So I don't want to repeat a lot of things that people have said already. I do want to thank the working group again for spending all that time and effort to come to this conclusion. I don't think personally it's important for me whether I like this design or not. What has become apparent to me that's important for this community is that I don't feel, after reading all the comments, all the letters, speaking to people on the committee, and really thinking hard about this, that we really have a consensus. There is no rush about this. This is a decision that will affect the city for many decades to come, as was pointed out. I think we need to take more time and try to reach more of a consensus than we have now. We have a divided citizenry. We have a divided city council. I don't think that's the way to make a decision that's going to be with us for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lobovitz. I have Councilor Albright, Getz, Vice President Kalis. Councilor Albright.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to add my thanks to Councilor Humphrey and Councilor Malachy for participating in this process that took such a long time. You know, my first impression of the seal was, oh, I'm not sure I like that design. Then I started looking at other cities and what they have. Quincy has a ship on the water and a tree. Braintree has a raised arm holding a sword. Somerville has the Powder House, which is, if you know, I went to Tufts, so I know Powder House Square. Springfield has a very complicated sign with 4 or 5 different motifs. So there is no perfect seal. And doing this again, I was listening to Councillor Farrell suggest the Echo Bridge. And I thought, oh my God, half the city doesn't even know there is an Echo Bridge. And I thought of Councillor Wright's ideas about an old, kind of historic building, which to many people, they don't know what they are. I think the City Hall is something which people all over metropolitan Boston know about. And as a matter of fact, I don't know about you, but I hear people commenting about City Hall when I go travel either downtown or wherever I am. People say you have a beautiful City Hall. And I think it is beautiful. And I really want to associate myself with the comments of Councillor Downs and Councillor Greenberg and Councillor Grossman as well. You know, it's not a perfect design, but it's, I think it's good because it is simple. It doesn't take us down a pathway of Echo Bridge or some kind of a historic building that most of the city doesn't really know about. It doesn't get us into the issue of Jackson Homestead and, oh my God, what are people going to think about Jackson Homestead? So I really think we should approve this. We should change the seal. As Councilor Greenberg said, the seal right now is inappropriate, and it doesn't reflect the diversity of our city. And I hope that we can vote for this tonight and move along. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albright. Councillor Getz, Vice President Kalis. Councillor Leary, we'll put you on there. Oh, and Danberg too. It's a full house tonight. All right. Councillor Getz, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. President. But I actually even think, okay, everybody's going to have a moment to speak. And so this is where it's too many cooks in this kitchen. All right. Yes, our current seal needs to be revised and to move away from the depiction of revisionist history. But I'm not ready to support the proposed design. It does not meet the criteria that I believe is required, an artistic symbol of our city. When I close my eyes, I need to think about, what do I think about when I think of the city of Newton? I think of open space and I think of the river. And I think that if over 70% of our city is abutted by the river, we originated with the river. We need to have that on the seal, period. I think in Ward 5, we're so fortunate because our whole southern border is on the river. And I think of it as so enriching and so incredibly a part of what my experience in Newton is, that it needs to be present on the seal. We've lived with the current seal for over 160 years. We need to get this right because it needs to survive for the next 100+ years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Getz. Next, I have Vice President Kalis.
Okay, so Echo Bridge, the river, Jackson Homestead, Allen House, City Hall. I'll throw in the old Countryside School. Look, this is a matter of taste. Okay, we're all going to have opinions, but we're not going to agree. Do I expect consensus? I don't. In the work that I do, we're always evaluating creative, and very rarely do we come out on, oh, we all love this and we have to go with it. It's always a battle, but I like the new seal. Its symbolism is great, representing the schools with the orange color, the 13 villages, the water representing the Charles, and I dislike the current seal. I've disliked it for a long time, but I've also accepted it. I've lived with it now for my life. But having an option to move away from the old seal is a choice that I want to take. I disagree, but respect my colleague from Ward 1 when he says a no vote is not a yes vote for the existing seal. In my opinion, it is. I also don't think necessarily this is a 100-year decision. I mean, this is something that can change with the next mayor, the next council, whatever it might be. It's an evolution and it's a process. So to me, we have to move off of the old seal. At least I do, because I dislike it. And I like what I'm seeing, but I also acknowledge there's a process. It's going to probably be improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Kalis. Counselor Leary, Danberg, Baker. I think that's. Do I have anybody else up there too? No, Leary, Danberg, and Baker. Counselor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just couldn't help but kind of, my smile was when Counselor Grossman had mentioned how we can't agree on anything. She and her husband can't agree on anything. We'll be right back here not agreeing on anything again. First of all, I do want to thank the group and the committee that did work on this seal. It's almost a thankless job because you really can't get consensus here. But I am going to vote for this seal because I think I think it's I like the simplicity of it. You have the water feature, you have the broccoli tree feature, and you have our beautiful City Hall, which I do love this. I do love City Hall. So I think it meets all our requirements there. I mean, there's a lot of other great suggestions that came out. Sure, I love Jackson Homestead, the Durant Kenrick House, the Allen House. Those are all great suggestions. But I think we should make a decision now. The time is right. And I think it's a fine seal, especially when you look at some of the other cities and town seals. And I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Leary. Counselor Danberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too will be voting yes on this. I think that City Hall is an entirely appropriate depiction to have on our seal. We've got a list now of other things that would certainly be nice and recognizable by certain groups of people. I would love the idea of bringing out something in the Allen House as a founding member of the Newton Cultural Alliance and having worked from the very beginning of finding that house and restoring it. It is everything that has been mentioned here. One local landmark, I would say, that nobody has mentioned is former President Baker's home. We could add that to the list. It's, I think, the second oldest house in the city of Newton, but who knows that? Everybody knows City Hall. And I also would like to thank the designers and decision makers who in 1932, at the height of the Depression, when money was as tight as it ever has been in anyone's memory, that they did go ahead and put the marble and the granite and the copper and the grand style of this building and have given it to us to appreciate. And I think that everyone who comes to this city, lives in this city, drives through this city, or knows the city will recognize City Hall as a symbol befitting of Newton. I do wish that the depiction of City Hall and it's the tree that it's in, the broccoli tree. I happen to like broccoli. And I might have designed it a little bit better, but I'm not an artist. And I think that the thankless job that the people who have put so much time, effort, and energy into designing this seal they have come up with an appropriate seal. This is a seal that, while I join those who are not, who don't think that it's a perfect seal for my liking, I think it's appropriate for the city, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Danberg. I next have Counselors Baker, Humphrey, and Gentile. I think that wraps it up. Counselor Baker.
Thank you, folks. And apologies for not being able to be there. So I appreciate the reference to my house. It's the second oldest, but the oldest house has now been bought by Boston College. So it might qualify as the oldest, but I don't think it's an appropriate reference, but I appreciate the reference. I think that the seal may not be perfect, but it's a vast improvement. And I do think, remember, this is a seal for the city of Newton. It says this is city business. And when the people are going to wear this as a badge on their uniforms, it's going to be on their cars. It's got to say that it's the city. And that's what this really represents. So City Hall is appropriate to me, although there are many other things that people have wisely spoken about that could be there. And the fact that this is a representative government body being visually memorialized in that process. So I'm happy to vote for it. And I want to just associate my comments with the comments of those who've spoken before me in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Baker. Counselor Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I wanted to kind of hopefully wrap it up with a few comments in response to particular questions that had come up. Some of which I think have already been touched on by some of the colleagues who've just spoken, but the working group did consider, to my recollection, every single site that has been mentioned tonight as an alternative, certainly including Echo Bridge, the Charles River, all of the specific structures that were mentioned. We even sent out, before we did any designs, we sent out the graphic designer. He went out with his camera and took photos of various different angles and shots. And you would be surprised at how difficult it is to get good angles on some of these things and to get things that can be rendered in an appropriate drawn way to be able to put it on these seals. We did, I think, very, very thoroughly consider all of the points that have been raised tonight on our own before they were raised by any of you. And so I don't want anyone to feel like they weren't heard on any of these points, because we did think through very carefully, especially before we had done any sketches. And we did ultimately settle on City Hall as not only, as Councilor Albright said, a beautiful attraction that is actually one of the most popular places to get married in the state, but also is a representative, as Councilor Baker said, it's a representation of the city, which is what the function of the seal is going to be. And yes, there are certain elements of this seal that are simplified. We have one of the best, most experienced designers for this type of project currently working, who has done a lot of these type of projects elsewhere. And you need to make sure that it's replicable, reproducible in all kinds of different formats, that it can be seen at the size of a dime, that it can be seen in a much larger format. So there are certain elements that look very simplified, but that is also the general direction that design for official government functions has gone in, with state flags and things like that as well. Often it is said that you in fact want children to be able to draw the symbols of their government. And if they can't draw it because it's too complicated, that is often a sign that you have not really delivered what you needed to for the public. So again, I understand this is subjective on a lot of these points, but I just wanted to respond, make sure that people understood we had considered all of these perspectives that you're bringing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Humphrey. Counselor Gentile, I think you may be getting the last word this evening. You got about a minute left. Go ahead. You need to unmute, Counselor Gentile.
Sorry, I'm new to this. Anyway, I think it is very clear that there is a clear consensus that the current seal should be changed. I don't think that there is a consensus on what is in front of us for the seal to be changed to. I think that we can do better. I don't think that we should settle. So I am going to move to recommit this to programs and services.
There's a motion by Counselor Gentile to recommit all. I need a second for that motion. Seconded by Counselor Malachy. We're going to do this in a roll call vote, please. You'll call the roll just so we're clear. A yes or an aye vote is to recommit to programs and services. A no vote is to keep it here, and we then vote it up or down. Any questions? Counselor Oliver, procedural question?
And this is probably through you to the Chair of Programs and Services. It's my understanding that there isn't any more work that can be done with the budget that was allocated for this project. So I'm not quite sure what the outcome would be sending it back to Programs and Services.
Well, I think there could be a couple of outcomes there, possibly. One is the mayor does not allocate any more money from this fiscal year's budget, at least towards this process. And so there are no designer services available. I suppose it's always possible that the mayor in her prerogative could choose to fund additional services, but that has not been done. There's no proposal in front of us to do that. So I think it could be recommitted, but I think it needs to be done with a clear understanding that right now there are no additional funds to do any additional work. Of course, that could change. Okay, Counselor Humphrey, do you have a question?
Just a quick clarification on that as well, that the design that is before us is, until it's approved, the property of the designer. So we would in fact be starting over if we are rejecting this design and the mayor is not providing additional funds for proceeding with this design.
If the
So-
mayor does not provide
Right,
additional
so
funds.
I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page about that, and that includes the outer ring part as well, not just the graphical design. So we would be starting over again if there is no, and the position of the mayor's office is that this is done. from
That's
their
been the
perspective.
position of the mayor's office, but could go either way. Okay. Appreciate the clarification. Anyone else wish to speak on the motion? Again, a yes or an aye vote is to recommit. A no vote is to keep it here, and then we'll vote on the substantive item. Call the roll, please.
Counselor Albright,
No.
Counselor Baker,
No.
Counselor Bixby,
No.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
No.
Counselor Downs,
No.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
No.
Counselor Grossman,
No.
Counselor Humphrey,
No.
Counselor Kalis.
No.
Counselor Kelly,
No.
Counselor Krinsman,
No.
Counselor Leary,
No.
Counselor Lipoff,
No.
Counselor Labovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley, Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
President Laredo.
No.
Motion fails. 9 yeas, 14 nays, 1 absent.
All right, we're back to the main item. I think, colleagues, we've probably exhausted our discussion on this unless anybody feels compelled to add something else. So with that, Councilor Maliki,
Just a couple of points, responding to Counselor.
you're probably out of time, Councilor Maliki. You want a minute?
I was out of time before.
Well, I gave you a lot of extra time before in my discretion. So what do you need, a minute?
A minute will be fine, yes.
Okay, all in favor of granting Councilor Maliki an extra minute to speak, please say aye. Aye, opposed, go ahead, please.
So Counselor Humphrey pointed out that the working group considered multiple other sites. Of course, that was before I was on the working group, so I don't know exactly what or when, but what we ended up having the option for the public to vote on was only A, B, and C. A and B being different versions of portions of City Hall, and C being the tree that looked like broccoli next to a river that looked like a dirt road. So those were the only choices, and it seemed that according to the RFP procedure, which was to have 3 choices narrowed down to 1, at that point, we were kind of in this toboggan route with no off-ramps. And that's what people got to vote on, and that's how we ended up with the public not ever getting to see all the other options that might have been offered in if we'd had a wider choice. So we are the off-ramp. City Council is the one who gets to vote on this. So as I said before, if we want something different, or we want something better, we can't accept what we're being offered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maliki. Anyone else wish to speak either in person or online? All right, seeing none. Again, so we're very clear, a yes or an aye vote is in favor of the design as has been presented, and that will be the design. The verbiage will follow in a separate or a docket item, but that will be the design. A no is against the proposed design. Everybody clear on that? Call the roll, please.
Counselor Albright.
Aye.
Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Bixby.
Aye.
Counselor Block.
No.
Counselor Damberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs. I'm sorry.
Aye,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. Thank you. Counselor Farrell.
Aye. No, I'm sorry. I was confused by my name. Sorry.
Just to confirm, that was a no.
Yes.
Thank
No.
Thank you. Counselor Gentile.
No.
Counselor Getz.
No.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey.
Aye.
Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
No.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz.
No.
Counselor Lucas.
No.
Counselor Maliki.
No.
Counselor Mickley. Counselor Oliver.
No.
Counselor Wright.
No.
President Laredo.
Aye.
Motion carries 13 yeas, 10 nays, 1 absent.
All right, Counselor Lobovitz, a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn. Colleagues, I just want to take a moment to thank you all. I realize there was very passionate discussion on an issue tonight, but this again exemplified how we conduct our business respectfully, civilly, strong opinions, very heartfelt opinions, and ultimately a vote. And that's how democracy works. And I think we should take great pride in the fact that we are a legislative body that can do this kind of work in that fashion. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.